Hi, everyone. It is Carol C.C. Miller, your positivity trainer, peace activator, and global hugger. And today, my guest is Paul Zavagno, and we're going to have a great conversation around our stressful thoughts and how we can work with them, manage them, or release them. There's a whole variety of things that we can do with what we're thinking about. But as you know, hugs is my big thing. So if you're joining and you're in the need of a hug to heighten your celebrations, or to lessen the sorrowful thing you're going through, please put in comments where you're joining us from, and I will come back afterwards and give you a virtual hug. And you know I'm going to end the conversation talking about global free hugs coming up soon as well. But Paul, welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
It's great to be here, Carol. Thanks for having me.
So I'm trying to think, Paul, I'm not even sure when we met. It's been several years now. With Positive Focus here in Chicago, I've changed the name of it this year, but it was called Tuesday Teachings, where each Tuesday we would come together and discuss the work of a different author or speaker about ways to live our life healthier and happier. And so I met Paul regarding the work of Byron Katie, and that's what we'll be discussing today. And it's so interesting, when I first met him, I had heard of the work and knew what it meant, but until I experienced it with somebody else, and he's certified in the work, I didn't really get the impact it could have on me. And I tease him all the time because we have this monthly meeting still where other people join us. I'm like, I want to have that stressful thought right now, Paul. Let me have my stressful thought. And of course, it doesn't last that long. But Paul, could you share a little bit about your background? I mean, you used to be a principal in school.
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you. I was a teacher, and I was a elementary school principal for many years. Had a whole career that I loved doing that. And right toward the end, actually, of that career is when I found the work, or maybe it found me, I think is kind of the way I experienced it. And I was going through kind of a tough time in my life at that point in time. First of all, there was the anxiety about retiring, and I really loved my work as a principal. I was incredibly identified with that, and so the prospect of not being that anymore was scary. And I was feeling a lot of anxiety about that. The relationship in my marriage was shifting in ways that were really uncomfortable for me and scary as well. I was experiencing some turmoil with my sons, and everything seemed to be fine on the outside, right? Like if you looked at my life at that point in time, you go, oh, this guy's at the top of his career. He's got a nice family, lives in a nice house, everything. But inside, I was really suffering. And I went and had lunch with a colleague who had retired. He was also a principal. He had retired the year before. I figured he could help me. He could tell me what it was like kind of on the other side of that. And I complained the whole lunch about everything that was going on in my life that I hated. And he recommended a book. And I wrote down the name of the book, and I went to the library on the way home from lunch, and I looked up the book, and I went to the shelf and found the book. And next to the book that he had recommended, I found Katie's book called Loving What Is. And I just saw that on the spine of the book, Loving What Is. Like, how can you love what is when it's crap? Because that's what I was experiencing, you know? And that's kind of how it feels for us sometimes. Like, how can we possibly love that? So I took both books home. I read Katie's book. I don't even know what the other book was because I never read it. I was so excited by what I was reading. And I just poured through it, and I learned to do the work on my own. And then within a few months, Katie had a workshop here in Chicago. It was a weekend experience. I'm like, wow, this is, of course, meant to be. And I went, and I spent the weekend with, 100 people and Katie, and really learned to do the work and learned to love it. And then went from there to what's called the 9-day school, which was, I actually went to in June of my last year of work. And
Oh, wow.
I left. I had to tell my boss, I have to do this thing. And she said, fine, go. And I went and I found out a lot about the work. And that metaphor, the way I found it, the way I found the book next to the book that had been recommended became kind of a metaphor for me for the work, because for most of us, we're looking for happiness outside of ourselves. We're looking for the right job, the right partnership, the right relationship, the right amount of money, the right place to live, whatever it is. It's something out there that we want to be different, and then we'll be happy.
And
that was like,
I love that, because actually one of someone who's listening right now, Chrissy, mentioned asking, when's her Mr. Loyal ever going to come around? So, I mean, I don't think that we could actually do inquiry with, I mean, maybe we can with comments, I'm not sure. But I think that she'll learn with what we'll be discussing how she can inquire on that thought herself.
Yeah, so that's a perfect example. Is like we look outside, so Chrissy's looking for Mr. Loyal, right? Like the perfect guy, the one, right?
Yeah.
And whether,
I've never done that myself.
Oh, me neither. I've always doing my whole life, right? But what we tend to do that, we're looking somewhere else for the answer, the peace, the happiness, like I was looking for one book, and next to it was the answer for me. And what I've learned to see in the work is that the answer is inside. The one that we are looking for is us. So Chrissy, you are the one. You are your own Mr. Loyal, and the work can help you discover that. So what we do in the work is we identify judgments and then we question them. Judgments that we have about people, like, where's Mr. Loyal? You know, Mr. Loyal has not showed up.
Or for me, a lot of time it's time. I need more time is a lot of the time that we're working on.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be anybody after I'm not a principal. I'm gonna suffer if my marriage changes. All of those things are judgments we have about situations or people or places, things that we want to have be different than they are right now. Whenever we experience that, we're going to suffer. And in fact, that is the cause of all the suffering in the world, is those kinds of judgments. So in the work, we don't shy away from that. You and I have had a lot of discussion about this, like what happens when I have a negative thought? I don't want to be negative. But as much as we want to say that, we are. We walk down the street and we see somebody,
right, and
we have a judgment. That's a really attractive person. I want to go talk to them. That's a judgment. Or that's a scary person. I need to avoid them. Or we're driving our car and that person didn't use their turn signal. That's wrong. We have a judgment about them. So in the
world, been in a car with me, obviously, for that example.
Well, we all do it, right? But we, especially in those of us who have been on a path of either spiritual awakening or self-improvement, we know that doesn't work, right? We experience the stress that comes when we do that. And so we try to often bypass that and just think positive, right? That's the kind of mantra we hear. Don't be negative. We're taught that in most spiritual traditions. Treat others how you want to be treated. And the golden rule is a classic statement of that. So we know that doesn't work. And we try to just bypass it and sort of pretend that we're above it. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be spiritual. And in the work, we don't do that. We actually say, no, you know what? A lot of times I am petty and judgmental and intolerant. And so I actually embrace that. I identify it. Okay, what am I upset about? What's wrong? oh, that guy drove, he cut me off in traffic. And I've got a name for him, I can,
What I think I love so much about the work, and it really, you have helped me discover that because, as you know, I'm a big law of attraction person. So what I focus on is what I create. So when I first started doing the work with Paul, I did not want to focus. I mean, I knew I had a stressful thought, obviously, because we have all sorts of emotions, and they're not, just because we are angry doesn't mean we're an angry person. It's a feeling at that moment. But because I was so adamant of what I focus on, I create, and like, I knew it was my responsibility. It wasn't outside of me, even though I might have been, somebody outside of me might have been making me mad. I still knew it was internally me. But Paul pointed out, he's like, it's still in that moment, you're stressful. You're stressed out or whatever fear-based thought. So let's inquire on it. And the more I did, I tease him now. It's like, I want to be mad or I want to be upset. But in truth, it really does, when you go through this process, really does deflate the power of that stressful thought. It may not completely make it go away, depending on what you're dealing with. But it really brings it back to a knowing that you are in control of your feelings and your thoughts. And the more that you allow yourself to take that control, the less stress you're going to have about it. Can you, Paul, share a little story about how Katie even came up with the work?
Yeah, she was a businesswoman in California and very successful family. And she went through a long period of declining, increasing depression, really, and ended up in a clinic and really feeling like she wasn't even worthy of sleeping in the bed the clinic was provided. She was sleeping on the floor by the bed. And she woke up one morning and she tells the story that she looked down and saw a cockroach crawling over her foot and the sunlight streaming in, and she realized in that moment, it was like an epiphany, that there was nothing wrong except when she believed what she was thinking. And when she believed what she was thinking, she suffered, and when she didn't, she was fine. And she got out of the clinic, she went home, she was a different person, she wasn't depressed. People were like, who is this woman? She was changed. And she went on from there to really discover that what she experienced there was true for every human being, that when we believe what we're thinking, we suffer. And when we don't suffer. So she developed the work as a way of helping people to experience that again. So the work is very simple. It's free. It's available to anyone. It's 4 questions and turnarounds that help you inquire or question the thoughts that we're having. A lot of times we have thoughts and we don't even know we're having them, right? Yeah. It's like my yoga teacher this morning was talking about how our mental state is kind of like the weather, it fluctuates all the time. Sometimes there's a sunny day, like today here, and it's just beautiful. And other times it's cloudy and it's stormy and it's raining. And we may, just like we react to the weather, we react to our mental weather, if you will, sometimes without even being aware of it. So the first step in the work is really identifying what's going on up here. What am I thinking? What am I believing? And when we do that, we write it down typically, or we work with someone else and we tell them our thoughts. We identify that thought, and that thought could be, he's a terrible driver. She's not listening to me. She doesn't care about me. He doesn't respect me. Notice if you're listening, these thoughts might sound familiar to you.
Well,
because we all have them, right? Yeah. We all have had them.
And I love those examples, Paul, because a lot of times our stressful thoughts are, directly correlated to people in our lives. It could be a global thing that is stressing you out and making you scared or angry or whatever. But all of them this process can be used with.
Right. And right now, we were talking about this a little bit last night, but right now, this like politically and internationally, there's just a lot going on, and people are having stressful thoughts about that, about leadership, about conflict, about the way people are treating each other, the way problems are being solved. So those are all other thoughts that we're having. That's all part of our mental weather. We want
Right.
to identify that. But when we actually do the work, we're going to pick out one thought at a time, like, he doesn't care about me. And then we're going to take that thought, write it down, freeze it right on paper, and then we're going to take that to the 4 questions. It's 4 simple questions. Is it true? So, he doesn't care about me. Is it true? Yes or no? He doesn't care about me. Can I absolutely know that it's true? That's question number 2. Asking you again to go a little deeper, but it's a yes or no again. And this is a meditation. It's getting still, getting quiet, going back to the situation you were experiencing with him, feeling the emotion you were feeling, and answering the question. He doesn't care about me in that situation. Can I really know that that's true? Yes or no?
And Paul, can I interject really quickly on that? Because for me, when I've done the work with him, I have to remember to stay in that moment of stress, because I could quickly say he doesn't care about me. But if that anger moment was yesterday or whatever, I'm like, well, yeah, he really does care about me. Yesterday we had an issue or whatever. So I found it very easy until Paul kept pushing me back into that moment to say, no, that's not true. But in the moment of that actual experience of feeling stressed out from he doesn't care about me, or my client doesn't understand me, or whatever the excuse was that was stressing me out in the moment, I could in my head say, well, I can come up with an example where they do care about me. But it's
Right.
in that moment that you're inquiring about, not the brevity of your entire relationship with the person.
Exactly. And that's why when we identify the thought, we find a specific situation, a time and a place that we're really believing in, an emotion around it, and then, what's the thought? What's the offense that person committed? What's
Yeah.
their crime in that moment? They didn't care about me, or, he looked at me funny, or whatever we think happened in that moment. And it is true that a lot of us, especially those of us who are trying to be better, etc., we can talk ourselves out of it, and that's not the work. The work is staying in that moment, answering the 4 questions. So question number 3 is, we've already asked, is it true? And can I absolutely know that it's true? And now I really go back into the situation where I'm believing he doesn't care about me. And I'm asking the question, how do I react? What happens to me? So I'm really going inside, and I'm revisiting that situation. And I'm noticing how I feel in my body, the tightness in my chest, how I get anxious, my breathing gets shallower, I get tense. I notice the emotions. There's anger. There's also fear. And there's some resentment. And I notice mental images, like I may go back and see the other time he didn't care about me and bring that in as evidence. And I look at how I treat him in that situation. And that could be outwardly what I do, what I say, how I look. I could give him the look, the look we give. Or sometimes it's just in my head that the way I'm judging him, that he's being unfair and he doesn't understand me, and I'm putting a lot of energy into that. So that's question number 3. I might spend minutes in that, really experiencing the stress, all the ways that plays out. And then I go to question 4. Who would I be in that moment without the thought? Like, there I am, there he is, and I notice we're talking. Who would I be if I didn't believe in that moment that he doesn't care about me. And I notice what happens in my body. I relax. My breathing gets deeper. I notice I'm able to look at him more clearly, listen to him, connect with him. I can see that he's upset. I maybe move to ask him what's going on. It's a very different feeling.
Yeah.
And then I go to what's called the turnarounds, which are ways of experiencing the opposite of the original thought. So if he doesn't care about me, could become, I don't care about me. Wow. So I go back into that situation and I look at it again from the perspective of, I don't care about me. Like, notice how I'm not caring about myself in that situation. I know that it's someone else, and yet I don't care to do what I know is right. I don't really listen to my own advice, if you will. I don't care about me. I blame myself. I notice when I think he doesn't care about me, one of the things I do is think there's something wrong with me. I start to blame me for him.
Right. Yeah.
So that's one of the turnarounds. Another turnaround is I don't care about him. And I can definitely see that in that situation, how I judge him, how I separate from him, how I really don't care what he's experiencing at all. It's all about me in that moment, how I'm feeling. And then the third turnaround I would look for, the turnaround to the opposite, is he does care about me. And that's hard because I'm in that situation where I believe he doesn't, but I'm still going to meditate on and look for how he does, how actually what he's saying to me is he's giving me advice that's in my best interest, and I don't want to hear it. So he's caring about me with those words, really. But when I react defensively and protect against his advice, I'm not caring about him, and he is caring about me.
So in that instance, though, when you switched around saying he is caring about me, like, do you also go into other, like, even though you're in this moment of stress, do you also go into how 20 minutes prior to that, let's assume it was an argument or whatever that created that stress, of how he was caring about you, or that the majority of times he does care about you, but you don't do well with the combative part of it. Yeah. So are you using those experiences, or are you just looking for how he cares about you in the stressful moment?
Well, I start in the moment. And the reason I do that is I'm uncovering how reality works.
Okay.
And how reality works in the moment is that he is caring about me. I can't see that when I'm believing he doesn't care about me.
Right.
So there's a real power in seeing that in that precise instant. Now, it's also helpful, sure, to notice we've been friends for 20 years and he's cared about me all the time. But I don't go there first. And the reason I don't, even though that's valuable too, to recognize the context of his caring, it can be an escape from seeing how reality unfolds in that moment.
Okay.
If I go too quickly to that, because I won't see how my belief he doesn't care about me actually blinds me to reality in that moment. And it's easier to see when I look at the whole relationship, 20 years, oh yeah, he cares about me. But I could still harbor the idea that he cares about me, but not that time.
Not then he didn't.
So to go into it in the moment shows me, no, actually that time too. He might have been expressing his care in a weird way to me.
Right.
Like it came I heard it as criticism. I defended against it. I got upset. I got angry. I got hurt. But the reality is, underneath that criticism was caring. If he didn't care, he wouldn't criticize me.
That's powerful work when you are able to use it. I do want to preface that with anything that we talk about. There's not a one size fits all. And if you're in a situation, so there's many forms of stressful thoughts and things, but if you're in a truly combative situation, perhaps trying to identify your stressful thoughts is not what you need to do. You need to get out of that moment. So there's we're not saying that when somebody is potentially assaulting you or whatever, to go do the work in that moment. You still need to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Do what you need to do. And often, even if it isn't a physically threatening situation, in the moment, we may not be prepared emotionally or otherwise. You've talked about before. Sometimes I just want to be mad. I want to be heard. That's my experience right now. So I'm going to experience it. When I would do the work is later, when I'm calmed down. Now I'm revisiting that moment in time to see what my judgment was, to see what was really there. Now, Katie's book is Loving What Is, not loving what I wanted it to be or loving it the way it should be in my mind. It's loving what is. So I want to see all those places in my life where I don't love it the way it is. And at an appropriate point in time to do inquiry on it. Now, when you've been doing it for a while, I've been doing this for 10 or 11 years now, so it's more automatic. And I will have situations that are where I'm having a thought in the moment, he doesn't care about me, and the question will actually arise as I'm becoming aware of the moment. Is that really true? And the stress will drop away in that moment. But there are other times where I'm triggered and I can't do the work in that moment. I wouldn't try to. I'll wait. Later, the storm has passed. To go back to the weather analogy, the storm has passed. I'm back in my quiet space. I can think about it and I can examine it in safety. In the moment, I didn't have that capability, and we often don't.
Well, I think that's what I find so powerful about the work, or really any of this type of work, is, we're all human. You've been doing this for 10 years. I've been studying and training on positivity for many years, but there's still, there's experiences we can't control what goes on outside of us, but we can control what goes on inside of us. And sometimes in that very moment, we're not ready to control it. But when we go back and look at it and just inquire on it, as you said, then it really even deflates the experience that we might have had a half an hour ago, 2 days ago. You're looking at it with a new perspective on it.
Yeah, and the beauty of this is that every time we get upset, every time we get stressed, there is a gift underneath there for us to uncover if we're willing to identify the belief and then question. And so you can actually get excited when you get upset. Like, wow, I got upset. I wonder what I'm going to discover with that. There's going to be something there. So, in the example I was working before, to see and see the gift of caring getting expressed in so many ways, it's unbelievable. Sometimes it looks like screaming at me. But it's caring, it's love. Sometimes it looks like criticism. Sometimes it looks like turning your back and walking away. Because that's the best thing you could do. And I can find that in myself as well. Like when I scream and when I ignore and when I turn and walk away. And when I really look, it's usually I'm doing that to people that I love.
Yeah.
And that I really care about deeply. And I'm hurt, I'm triggered, I'm fearful, I'm upset, I'm believing something that's interfering with a
with your peace of mind.
With my peace of mind and with a more honest expression of that love, I guess.
Okay.
That when I am believing something about the situation or about them, then I act out of that belief. And then sometimes what I'm expressing comes out as criticism, comes out as a judgment, comes out as saying something not nice. And I recognize that. That's sort of, we experience the feeling often before the thought, right? Even though what's actually happened is the thought has occurred and then the feeling. We experience often the feeling first. So in the work, we talk about the feeling being the alarm clock, like, whoa, what is going on there, right? I was mad. I was upset. I was frustrated. I was worried. I was fearful. Whatever that kind of negative feeling was is an alarm clock to wake up. And then you can sort of ask yourself, like, what did I think was off in that situation? Who was doing something I didn't want them to do? Or what was wrong? What was different than I wanted it to be? What was my complaint? Because there was almost always a complaint when we're off, when we're fearful. So we write that complaint down. That's identifying what our judgment is. Another way to do it is think about, what advice do I have for them? There's some great tools. One of the places I would point people is to Katie's website, thework.com. And there's a lot of resources on that website. There are worksheets. There's a great worksheet called the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And you could take
one a good one.
stressful situation that you have with somebody, somebody in your family, a friend, a boss, a son, a parent, and you write down basically a collection of judgments that you have, like, what was their offense? What did you want them to do? What's your advice? What should they do and shouldn't they do? What do you need from them? What do you think of them? What do you never want to experience with them again? That's the structure of the worksheet. It's available for free download on thework.com. And that would give you a whole collection of thoughts about that person. And you pick one off at a time and you do the work on it. Write it down, ask the questions, turn it around, find the examples, and move on to the next one. There's another worksheet called One Belief at a Time, just like it says. You take one belief off the Judge Your Neighbor, write it down on the top of that sheet. It'll take you through the questions and you write your answer. It's really a chance to sit, though, quietly. It might take minutes. It might take a half hour to explore one question. If you wanted to, you can do it quicker, but you can really take it slow and really see what's there. How do I react? Who would I be without that thought? And also available on thework.com are a bunch of little videos of Katie doing the work with people. So it's really helpful. Like if you're struggling with a parenting issue, for example, go on the website and watch some other people work on their parenting issues. It's real easy to see how the work works in someone else, easier than it is to see in yourself sometimes.
Well, actually, Paul, I think that's so interesting because, as I mentioned earlier, we have a monthly call, and sometimes there's 2 people on there, sometimes there's 10 people on there. You don't know, but what we do when it's a larger audience is we let some people choose to do it silently and they don't share their work with us. However, I know I have found my ahas a lot in other people's stories, because I mean, I'm probably less judgmental at that moment when I'm thinking about somebody else's story rather than my own. So it is really powerful. And YouTube, you can go to YouTube and see a lot of Katie's videos there. I experienced Katie in 2010. I've never actually taken a course with her, but she was at the Celebrate Your Life conference that I've been working at. And I think it was 2010. I knew of the work and I knew of its power, but I hadn't experienced its power until I saw her do the work. And she was working with a young man who had a couple of young children at home, and his marriage was crumbling, and he said he did not want to get a divorce, but his wife did. So, I mean, and she spent quite a bit of time with him. And at one point she finally said, "Honey, do you really love your wife?" And he said, "Yes, yes, I do." And she's like, "If you really love your wife, do you want her to be with somebody that she doesn't love?" And it was like, that's such a harsh statement if you take it out of context, but it was so truthful in the moment. And he just had an eye-awakening experience. And she said at the end of it, she's like, "I'm not saying you're going to get a divorce or you're going to save your marriage, but it's the stressful thought that has got you in the struggle right now."
Yeah.
It was so powerful.
Yeah. Beautiful example. And that kind of experience is available to you watching someone else
Yeah.
go through their experience of it. Because it is you, you know, we've been in those situations. And it may not be the exact way that it was for him, but we can relate to it and we can see that Katie likes to say there are no new stressful thoughts. We just borrow them, you know. It's like, she doesn't love me. She doesn't care about me. She's rejecting me. Whatever those thoughts are, we've all had them about me.
Yeah, and Paul, that brings up a good question when you say that, because you've mentioned this before in our monthly conversations. I don't remember it exactly, but Katie says there's three different. You're in your business, or can you explain that?
Yeah, there's three different kinds of business. There's my business, their business, God's business. And my business is the stuff that I'm responsible for. It's what I think, what I say, what I feel, what I do. The stuff that I'm responsible for.
Yeah.
Their business, and it could be his, hers, theirs, its. Their business is the stuff they're responsible for, what they say, what they think, what they do, what they feel.
So in the examples we've been given, it would be, he doesn't care about me. The feeling is my business. His reaction is his business.
Right. Whether he cares or not is his business.
Okay.
Right? Like, whether I care about him or not is my business. That's my feeling. I care or I don't care. When I go into his business, which is what I was doing, when I'm saying he doesn't care about me and I'm complaining about that, I'm really sort of energetically telling him how to live his life. He should be caring about me and he's not. So I'm over there living his life for him. I'm telling him to care. He's over there, caring or not, doing what he does, and no one is here with me. So whenever the teaching about the three kinds of businesses, whenever you're out of your own business, you're going to suffer. You're going to feel lonely and disconnected. And that's the way I feel when I think he doesn't care about me. Now, we think the cause of that feeling is his behavior. But the cause of that feeling is actually my going into his business, my thought that puts me over there with him over there, and no one's home with me. Now I'm lonely. There's no one here because I'm over there. And I don't like that feeling. I want to get rid of it. So I blame him. That's kind of the mechanism how it works. So a shortcut, oh, I'm feeling stress in that situation. Notice I'm believing. I'm seeing that I'm believing. He doesn't care about me. And I ask myself the question, whose business am I in?
Mm.
Am I in my own business? Uh-huh. Oh, bingo. Get back in my own business. Like, what's my business? What I'm experiencing. What I'm thinking. That's my judgment. What I'm believing. What I'm saying and doing. Those are the things I can control.
And I think I cut you off on the third. It was your business, their business.
God's business is a third, and that's the things that neither I nor they are responsible for. So the weather, how much, what the level of the oceans are, I mean, you can quibble about some of these things, whether it's God's business or it's their business, how much poverty is in the world, whether there's a war or not, what the weather is like. Those are things clearly beyond my control. Now, we get that with the weather, right?
Right.
It's raining and we don't want it to be raining. We're like, oh, well, I can't stop it from raining. I can be upset about it or not, but I'm not going to have my picnic today or I'm going to get wet. But we don't believe that we could change the weather. But when it comes to another person, we believe we can change them. I can make him care about me. I'm going to do that. I'm going to manipulate him. I'm going to look a certain way or guilt him into it or manipulate him or buffalo him into it or do something to make him care about me. That's what we try
and I think it's even the important part of that is care about me the way I want to be cared about. Yes. Because somebody else can be, like I really like the 5 love language book because it shows you how like we tend to share our love the way that we need love. And so like I'm a big words of affirmation person and gifts is my lowest one. So when people are giving me a gift, I'm not saying I don't like it. Who doesn't like gifts? But that is not showing love to me as much as saying nice things to me. Is that so? The stressful thought would be he's not caring about me in the way that I want to be cared about. So to me, he doesn't care about me.
And when
he's like, yes, I care about you.
Yeah, often I've discovered that that's the case when we have the judgment. He doesn't care about me, and we're doing like when we do a whole judge your neighbor worksheet. If I was doing that on him, I might get down to the wants. I want him to care about me. And when I really look at that carefully, I often discover, yeah, not only do I want him to care about me, but I want him to care about me in a certain way.
Right.
The way I want in that moment, which is for him to look at me, for him to say nice things, for him to take back his criticism and apologize and own that it was his fault. That's how I want him to care about me. And even if he were to care about me in a different way, but it wasn't the way I wanted, I might not be okay with that.
Yeah.
I find in those situations how much of a dictator I am, right? I not only want you to care, but you better do it my way.
And in my time, too.
On my schedule, right.
Make sure it's happening when I want it to.
Because in another moment, I don't want the care because I'm doing something else. Just leave me alone. Then I'm
occupied now. I don't need you to fill my time for me anymore.
Exactly.
And I think this work, again, I mean, anything that we do to lessen our stress and to bring more peace and compassion into our own lives creates more peace and compassion in the world.
Right.
But it does require practice. Like I say all the time, like if I could go to the gym one day and be buff, I would be there in a second. But that, you're working and exercising your muscles. So this is working and exercising your compassion muscles, your positive muscles, your kindness muscles to yourself and things. So it's really, you may just now hearing of this work, try it once and it not work because you're not ready to let go of that story. And as I tell Paul, there's sometimes I'm not ready to let go of that story, even though intellectually I know I should. Like, I know having that stressful thought is not serving me. It's not making me a better person, and it's certainly not making me a happier person. Yeah. But in that moment, I am attached to that story, and I want to be there with, he doesn't care about me, or whatever that stressful thought is in the moment. And then you let it go.
It is truly a practice. And like learning a sport, like working out, like learning a language, a musical instrument, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And you know, many people have a daily practice of doing the work, and they'll do one thought each day, or they'll do a judge your neighbor worksheet at the beginning of the week and then work a thought each day, just as a practice. It's like a little bit of a workout. And, you know, some days it might, you know, and it's like anything else that's a practice. But the more you do it regularly, the more it's available to you, and there's really a very stressful thing. There's another resource I want to mention that's on thework.com, and that's called the Helpline.
Oh, yeah. I was going to have you mention that.
It's also free. Look under resources. There are people who are facilitators, like myself, who are certified, other people that are in training to be certified, who are available to do the work with you. It's, you can go on the website. It's not 24/7, but every day there are people available. Sometimes they're available in dozens of different languages. You can go on, you can find phone numbers and when people are available, and you can call up and say, I'm having a stressful thought, and they'll work with you. Or if you were doing the work and you got stuck someplace, I can't find the turnaround. I've tried to do this work myself and I can't release it. There'll be somebody there to work with you. It's free. I'd also invite people to come on our monthly calls.
Yeah, and honestly, I usually don't post it on the Positive Focus Facebook. I mean, recently we started doing it as a Zoom call, so it would be easier for people to join us around, you know, the country. Or, I mean, people do join us around the country, but I've never opened it up to the global community. But I will definitely do that, and hopefully people, we do it at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, so it's the middle of the night for some people around the world, but I will still make it available for people to join us.
People have stressful night, I think, so it might be.
That might be the exact time that they need it. Exactly.
Also, you know, there are facilitators and there are groups all over the world. There are people that do the work all over the world. So Google it and look in your community. You may find that there's a meetup group in your area, or an association, or a facilitator. All the facilitators that are certified in the world are listed on her website as well. So you can go up and look by language or by country and by state in the U.S. and find somebody that's close to you and check in with them, see if there are groups around. Those are things that can support you in your practice. I'd also recommend the book, Loving What Is. That's her first book, and it's sort of captures what the work is, how it works, gives lots of examples of dialogues, Katie doing the work on different topics, and gives some guidelines for how to answer the questions and what happens when you get stuck and that sort of thing. It's available in most libraries. It's available on Amazon and most bookstores. Loving What Is. I'd recommend those two resources.
It's such a great resource because it truly is what is what we have. You know, we can, and I'm remotely not saying not to vision and dream about your future, because that's great to create from that space and to look back on your past and, you know, reminisce. But truly what we have is this now moment. So the more that we can be in a space of loving what is, then we're going to create more loving what is experiences.
Yeah, and I think the dreaming then can be done from a place of clarity, and the reflections and looking back can be done from a place of clarity and peace. where we can really be all that we want to be in freedom, not out of a sense of obligation or duty or I've got to earn something, but expression of who we are naturally.
Yeah, it truly is powerful work, and I would encourage you to go to, I'll post in the comments, thework.com. It's that simple, though. It's thework.com. And I'll also post Paul's website as well. You do different workshops around the country and things. Do you have anything coming up right now, or?
Not immediately. There's going to be here in the summer, probably end of August, beginning of September, and I'll get those up. We're still working on details of that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for joining. I mean, I think this work is so powerful, and my whole intention of the work I do is to help heighten celebrations and lessen sorrow. So I know that the work can do that for you. And I just quickly, so the resources are thework.com, and it's to inquire on your thoughts. Paul, can you give us the 4 questions again?
Yeah. Is it true? Can you absolutely know that it's true? How do you react? What happens to you? Who would you be without that? 4 simple questions that can change your life. Thank you, Carol, for all you do and for having me on today. You're such a beacon of positivity in the world.
Thank you. And that's, again, one of the things I like to tell people. I practice this. I live it and breathe it, and I still have stressful thoughts. I still get sad or angry or upset about something, and then I work myself through it because I really focus on how I feel. And if it doesn't feel good to me, then I want to get rid of it. And the work is one of the tools I use to get rid of it. I definitely live in deep appreciation. And when it's a situation that's really got a hold of me, that appreciation may have to go back to, I'm grateful that I breathe on my own. So, I'm always talking to the birds and the trees and everything for appreciation, but it's a practice. And the more I practice staying in a place of compassion and kindness, the easier it gets. It does not mean it's always easy, and choices aren't always easy, but they're available to us. So really encourage you to check out the work. What's coming up, as I mentioned earlier, Global Free Hugs is May 6th and 7th. I've been doing it for 9 years now, and I think it's our 12th event because first I did it twice a year. And so right now I have huggers on 4 continents, 12 countries, and 17 states. We just had some huggers join us in Bangladesh. So I'm excited to have them join us. And it's simple as a free hug sign, finding someplace public to go to offer hugs. And I would encourage you, a lot of people say, who doesn't want a hug? Well, you know what? There are people who don't want hugs because they've had some type of trauma in their own lives. So you do not have to hug. Sharing your smile, sharing a kind word is equally powerful. And if hugging a stranger is way out of your comfort zone, which it was for me when I started, hug your friends, hug your family, and send me those pictures that weekend. The intention is to spread kindness around the world through the gesture of a free hug. But any kind of hug you give that weekend or today is helping to elevate the world as well. So thank you again, Paul, for joining us, and thank you guys for joining. I'm still figuring out how to read comments and respond, but I will go look at them as soon as we get done. But just remember, go out there and shine yourself, do the work, inquire about what's stressing you out, and know that you're worth living a happy and healthy life and that you matter. You matter to me, you matter to the world, and most importantly, you matter to you. We'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.